Right, stop everything you are doing because the news that has just broken about Meghan Markle is so spectacularly revealing, so perfectly and uncomfortably timed that I had to set my cup of Yorkshire Gold down on the sideboard and simply stand there for a moment, staring at the wall before I could find the words. The Duchess of Sussex, the woman who once stood on the steps of St. George's Chapel in a Givenchy gown and told the world she was stepping into something greater, is now reportedly considering taking her clothes off on camera to save her career. And darling, that sentence contains everything you need to know about where we are in this story. Let me lay this out for you clearly, because the facts are extraordinary enough without any embellishment. Meghan Markle's multi-million-pound Netflix arrangement has, by all credible accounts, fallen apart. What began in 2020 as a $100 million deal, announced with enormous fanfare and headlines across the globe, has quietly crumbled into what industry figures are calling a first look arrangement, which is the entertainment world's rather polite way of saying Netflix will take a glance at your ideas, but is absolutely not writing any more large checks. The lifestyle series With Love, Meghan had a second season that landed with all the cultural force of a damp flannel. The animated series Pearl was cancelled before a single frame was produced. Archwell Productions, that grand vehicle for their Hollywood ambitions, is reportedly operating with a skeleton crew. The Spotify deal is long gone. And now, into this rather bruising landscape, come reports that the Duchess is considering a return to acting, specifically in roles described by insiders as, and I want to quote this precisely because I genuinely cannot improve on it, very raunchy. One source told Radar Online that there is talk she is actively considering a return that leans into more daring, even raunchy scenes, because she feels she has nothing else to try at this stage. Nothing else to try. Sit with that phrase for a moment. This is the woman who was handed a title by our crown, who stood in Westminster Abbey, who had the patronages, the platform, the history, the sheer extraordinary weight of centuries behind her. And now the reported calculation is that the most viable path back to relevance involves taking off her clothes in front of a camera because the jam did not sell sufficiently and the Netflix executives have stopped returning calls with any warmth. I want to be fair here, as I always try to be, and I will say plainly that these are reports. They are claims from unnamed sources, and Meghan's representatives have not confirmed any of this. That matters, and I will not pretend otherwise. But here is the thing that I keep coming back to. The sources are multiple. They are saying similar things, and the broader landscape in which these reports are emerging is not one that anyone could credibly describe as a smear campaign, because the facts that are firmly established, the Netflix decline, the brand struggles, the cooling of Hollywood relationships, are already damning enough on their own. Her former Suits co-star Eric Roberts has been making the rounds, bless him, cheerfully predicting she will blow everybody's mind on her comeback. His wife, Eliza, a casting director, was rather more candid, telling the Daily Mail that the royal family had concerns about Meghan's role in Suits because it was, in her words, very sexy. She said they had never seen anything like that. Now, I want to unpick that observation very carefully, because what Eliza Roberts is essentially telling us, in the most well-meaning way imaginable, is that the character Meghan played in Suits was so sexually provocative that it genuinely caused consternation inside the palace. And now, having left the palace, having positioned herself for years as a serious producer and businesswoman and lifestyle guru and advocate for women everywhere, the reported strategy for her comeback is to lean back into that very thing, because nothing else has worked. There is something almost Shakespearean about that arc. Not the triumphant kind of Shakespeare, more the kind where everyone in the audience can see what is coming before the characters on stage quite manage it. She has, it is worth noting, already dipped her toe back in. She was reportedly filmed last November, playing herself in a comedy film called Close Personal Friends, starring alongside Brie Larson and Lily Collins. Sources close to the production told People she introduced herself to everyone and was very relaxed and happy, which is rather lovely. But playing yourself in someone else's film is not quite the same as the leading role she clearly believes she is owed.
And so the question being asked in Hollywood right now is whether any studio is actually going to take a meaningful chance on a 44-year-old actress who left the industry 8 years ago, spent those years in a rather public war with both the British press and her own family, and whose most recent body of professional work includes a lifestyle program that underperformed and a jam brand that produced no discernible cultural moment whatsoever. The honest answer is that nobody knows. Hollywood has seen stranger comebacks, but this one comes with rather a lot of baggage, and the baggage has been very publicly documented across 6 Netflix episodes, a memoir, multiple Oprah appearances, and a high court trial. That is an unusual career portfolio to be pitching alongside a showreel. What I find genuinely fascinating, and I say fascinating in the way one finds a very complicated jigsaw fascinating, is the particular contradiction at the heart of all of this. Meghan spent years building a public identity around empowerment, authenticity, and the idea that she was operating from a position of strength and intention. She walked away from the crown, she told us, not because she had to, but because she chose to. She was going to build something extraordinary. She was going to produce meaningful content and lead a lifestyle brand and demonstrate that a modern woman could shape her own destiny on her own terms. And now the terms appear to involve stripping that identity back to the very starting point. Not a powerful producer with $100 million deal, an actress looking for work, and reportedly willing to take rather more daring work than she might have once chosen. Back in 2022, asked by Variety magazine whether she would ever return to acting, she said, and I want to give her full credit for this moment of apparent finality, "I am done. My intention is absolutely not." She said it with confidence. She said it as someone who had moved on and was looking forward. The fact that we are now discussing reports that she has not merely changed her mind, but is actively pursuing a return because the alternatives have largely dried up, is, I think, a rather significant distance between that 2022 interview and today. There is also the question of what this all means for Harry, and I say that with a genuine concern that I want to be absolutely clear about. Reports have emerged in recent weeks suggesting the couple's differing professional trajectories have created strains between them. Harry has been quietly seeking some form of rapprochement with his family, making overtures towards Sandringham, reportedly attending events that signal a softening of his position. And yet, if Meghan's plan is a Hollywood comeback that leans into provocative material, one has to wonder how comfortably that sits alongside any hope of re-establishing a relationship with the institution his father leads. The palace is not a place that has ever been comfortable with what one might call raunchy content. It was not comfortable when Meghan was playing Rachel Zane in a cable drama. I rather doubt it will be comfortable now. There is also something rather
rather specific about the timing of this reported strategy that I want to draw your attention to, because I think it illuminates something important. We are told that discussions about a raunchy acting return are happening now, in the spring of 2026, precisely as Harry is quietly making overtures toward his father, as the king prepares for his first state visit to the United States, as the palace is navigating its own set of considerable pressures with characteristic dignity. And into that careful, delicate moment comes news that his wife is exploring provocative screen roles. One wonders who, if anyone, is thinking about the long game here. Because if the goal is any kind of rapprochement with the institution, with the family, with this country, then the strategy of leaning into raunchy Hollywood material seems, to put it charitably, somewhat counterproductive. What strikes me most, if I am going to be completely honest with you, is the question of who Meghan Markle actually is when you strip away the layers of careful management. We have had so many versions of her: the progressive humanitarian, the empowered producer, the wellness advocate who sells raspberry jam at prices that would make your Aunt Patricia from Guildford choke on her scone, the devoted mother, the wronged woman. Each version has been presented with enormous conviction and then quietly updated when it stopped delivering the desired results. And now, according to people who know her professional situation rather well, we may be about to receive yet another version, the comeback actress, the one willing to be bold and provocative and commercially adventurous in a way that the previous versions were not.
One does not doubt the sincerity. One does, however, notice that the sincerity seems to travel wherever the opportunities lead, which is not quite the same thing. She filmed a brief appearance last November in a production called Close Personal Friends, a comedy starring some genuinely impressive names: Brie Larson, Lily Collins, and others. Sources reported she was relaxed, warm, lovely to the crew. All of that sounds perfectly agreeable, and I mean that without a trace of sarcasm. But a cameo as yourself in someone else's ensemble piece is not quite the triumphant return that 6 years of brand building was supposed to deliver. It is, if one is being precise about it, rather a modest beginning. And the question being quietly asked in the rooms where these decisions are made is whether a modest beginning is actually going to lead anywhere, or whether the industry will treat it in the same way it has treated much of the Sussex output since Megxit, with polite interest, limited investment, and a gradual professional fade. Our royal family is getting on with it, as it always does. King Charles is preparing for what will be his first state visit to America, a moment of considerable diplomatic significance. Princess Catherine continues to serve with the kind of quiet consistency that makes this country proud. The institution functions, it breathes. It does not require a streaming deal or a casting announcement or a radar online source to justify its existence. It simply continues, as it has continued through rather more testing chapters than this one. And somewhere in California, a 44-year-old woman who was once a duchess, who was once photographed alongside our late beloved Queen in one of the most extraordinary moments of recent royal history, is reportedly having conversations about which kind of scenes she is prepared to film. The gap between those two things is enormous. It is perhaps the most telling measure of the distance between what was offered and what is being chosen, not with any particular glee on my part, but with a kind of quiet, determined honesty about what this story has actually become. Stripped of the Instagram captions and the carefully managed press releases, it is a story about choices. And the choices, rather unfortunately for the people who made them, do not appear to be working out in the way that was promised. Britain is watching, as it always has, and it is drawing its own conclusions.